Hey everyone, it's Gadget here with another time-lapse painting for you. And this time I am drawing Gwen Stacy from the Spider-Verse films. I love the art style of these films. I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse yet, but Into the Spiderverse is one of my favourite films of all time. And I saw a lot of people doing kind of fan art of Miles and Gwen from these films, seeing as the second film came out. So I thought I'd have a crack at it. And I thought I'd have a crack at doing an action pose. So you can see I've got a reference picture there. And I'm trying my hardest not to trace it. I don't want to trace it, but this is a complicated pose because there's a lot of foreshortening going on. She's in a very strange, quite unnatural position for a person. Fingers are splayed everywhere. She doesn't have any facial features because of the mask, so this was a real challenge to get right. And I did this over 5 sessions. Eventually I got it into a state that I was happy with, and I started on the background. And the whole thing with the Spider-Verse films is the backgrounds are bold, and it's bold colours. So, you know, I wanted blues, I wanted purples, I wanted pinks. Which I think from the second film is kind of the colours of her multiverse anyway. I also, from a piece that I did recently of a cityscape, I did a cityscape. Just a really simple one. I found someone on Instagram whose name escapes me, who showed how to do a cityscape, and I'm just basically copying the idea here. Unfortunately for me, I fucked this up massively, and I end up completely locking up Photoshop in a minute. And I have to do the lot again. You'll see it come. I get one of the selection tools to try and kind of twist it around, and then yeah, Photoshop just absolutely locks up for me. So I had to kill it and start it again. Not happy about, so I have to do all those windows again. The windows are just simply creating lines, and then creating lines horizontally and then rubbing them out vertically, and that's how you do windows. And then I get another eraser and, you know, just do it's like a sponge eraser and just do spongy pop outs to make it look like not all the lights are on at the same time. Yeah, fun little technique I found. And then I blur the background, and then I start to kind of work on the floor. I am taking vague inspiration for the background from the reference picture, but I kind of want to do my own thing. Again, pinks, purples, blues, and then just using the blend tool just to drag it around, make it look a little bit psychedelic, twist it around, move it around. I've been using a lot of that perspective tool recently. And then some pipe work on the building behind her, which is too bright. I end up fixing that later on. Yeah, but that's kind of the background done and me reasonably happy with it, and then we move on to actually colouring in Gwen herself. Now, I actually end up adapting the model of Gwen as well because there are some things I've gotten wrong here, mainly her arms, so in a future session I fix that. But at the minute it's now just kind of getting the basic details of her suit in, so I'm just kind of picking up the colours from the reference image just to get them right, get the base white, get the base black down. Around the outline, just trying my best to make it neat, trying my best to make it neat, quite frankly. And I fucked those fingers on that hand were my white whale. It took me forever to get them right. You'll see that in the next session. I end up spending a lot of time just trying to fix that. But here, yeah, getting the kind of the block kind of pinky red. I'm not really sure what colour that is actually, because I'm colorblind. I can't tell if it's pink or red. I think it's pinkish red. So yeah, kind of the next session comes in, trying to fix the hand, so like kind of getting the pencil outline that I created, then just dragging the colors into place. Yeah, there was a bit. You can see when I drag it back. You see the arm was far too long and far too skinny. But yeah, this is the worst bit of it. Just trying to get a hand right and desperately trying not to just pick up the image and trace over it, because I did that for another piece where I was struggling with the hand. That was for my day 100 piece of RE312. I was struggling with the hand, so I ended up just like dragging the hand over to it. But no, this one I was determined to try and get it right, and I think I did a pretty good job, especially considering it's kind of like it's a splayed look anyway, so it kind of looks a little bit unnatural. Yeah, so I'm going to drag it over so I can just kind of draw directly against it, but I didn't trace it. Big up for me. Also realize when you're working with block colors, it's really hard to differentiate bits if you color it all out at once. Next bit is the highlights. And the highlights in the Spider-Verse style is really interesting because they do it very much like a comic book, like screen printed, as in it's kind of multiple layers of solid colour stacked on top of each other. Rather than it being blended, they're very distinct. So, you know, I'm taking pinks, I'm taking whites, and I think there's a blue in there as well in places, and just like layering them up there. So my pen work had to be great, and as you can see, my pen work is not great. This takes some correcting, but yeah, it's multiple colours stacked on top of each other, which I quite like, rather than blending them together. It's kind of like a very hard contrast. Then just kind of tidying up some of the white, some of the black, kind of fixing her shape, because again, most of this has been done pretty quickly. Fixing the outline of the eye cups. Eye cups? Is that what they're called? They might be. I'm not sure. And then kind of bouncing between my outline and the original image to try and get the webbing decal right on the inside of her mask. Well, inside of her hood, and then on the inside of the kind of the red bits on her arms. Just trickier than you'd expect. The other thing that I wanted to make sure with this one, I did not want a hard outline, like a hard black outline, because that's not in Spider-Verse. And I'm trying to make a habit of doing things without a hard black outline. There are obviously hard outlines, the purples and the pinks and all that, but I didn't want to have a like solid black outline like a lot of comic book things do, because, like I say, it's not in Spider-Verse. I tried my best to keep her as true to Spider-Verse as I could. It is obviously still my interpretation of it, and it is still kind of slightly different. But yeah, I'm quite happy with how this is going, especially with her pose. I was very happy to get the pose right. It took a lot of effort to get it right and to get it into a place I was happy with it. But yeah, it seemed to work out all right in the end. I'm actually quite surprised at myself. So yeah, you can see I'm just tidying up the pen work on the outlines and the highlights. Trying to make it look a little bit less like a cat had walked across the ink. I don't even know what that simile was. Right, okay, fixing the plimsolls now, giving us some shape to her feet. And, you know, getting in the wraps around the top of her foot and around her ankle. You know, trying to give well, they're not plimsolls, they're ballerina shoes. Trying to give them the actual shape. The way these are coloured here, so they're coloured in kind of like solid blocks of colour. And functionally, I didn't really kind of fully understand how this worked. Also, I'm colorblind, so like the second shade, well, I'm not fully colorblind, but like I have color awareness issues. The second shade of green, I couldn't see it when it was on the main color. So yeah, I kind of had to judge this one roughly. It ended up coming out all right, actually, though. I was quite happy with that. Weirdly enough. Next up was fixing up some stuff on the suit, getting in some more little bits and pieces of shading, and then I had to get in and start doing the kind of multi-shadow shading. So because the suit is white, it's kind of reflecting all different values of light. So when you actually look at the original image, they're in kind of very sharp relief with each other. They're very distinct from each other, but subtle. Like at a distance, you can't really see, you just see, but when you're looking closely. So I tried to do something similar to that. I just started using kind of like soft brushes and trying to give a general outline to things, and then I get into the sharp relief. So you can see I've got a dark layer here, and then pull it up, and then I'll put a slightly lighter layer in between, like more of a bluey layer. I think it's a bluey layer. And then I think there's a third layer that goes on top of that. Maybe? No. Yes, a darker layer. I'm trying to get the shadows in right. And then it's all dragging down the opacity, so they all kind of start to blend in with each other. And then same kind of getting the shadows for the underside of the hood, the inside of the arms, fixing up the legs, getting the shading in on the legs itself. And then there's an interesting one, because there's a texture to her suit. And the kind of a triangular thing. It's supposed to maybe look like Gore-Tex or something like that. Anyway, I found a brush which had dots. That seemed to work. Fade the opacity right down, and it kind of blends in with the lighting that I put in there. As you can see, same goes for the the upper layers. So it's very subtle. You can just about see it, but kind of covering over everything, or at least where you should be able to visibly see it, and then reducing down the opacity so it's not too obvious. Getting some shading on the eyes, reducing the brightness of the background down, and then just tidying up the edges. Getting her looking spick and span, because I was very messy with this painting. But there we go, we are done. Gwen Stacy, everybody. I really enjoyed this one. I learned a lot on this one, especially in terms of structuring a body, doing things without a hard outline, and then kind of stacking colours on top of each other. So I found this really satisfying. There is some stuff I do want to change. I probably should have put a shadow under her because she looks like she's kind of like perched on top of the picture rather than being part of the picture. But otherwise, it's cartoony, it's comic booky, it's fine. I was more interested in kind of getting the shape and style of the character and getting the motion into the character as well. So yeah, I'm happy with that one. Next up, I had a request a few videos ago to do a Stalker from the Stalker games. So I'm going to be doing that. So that should come up in the next week or two. But if you enjoyed this, do all the YouTube algorithm-y things, like, subscribe. Also, let me know. I'm considering just doing like a Patreon, like follow me for £1 and I'll give you the PSD files and high-res versions of these images. Just, yeah, let me know what you think to that one. I might do it, I might not, I haven't decided fully yet, but it just seems like a fun thing to do to give some people some extras. But yeah, thank you for watching, and good night.